All right, hello and welcome to the next in the series of artificial organizations and this live stream where we're being going through all the different chapters in the book. My name is Barry O'Reilly, and today I'm quite excited because we're actually in San Francisco. I'm here ahead of the book launch, official book launch, first event on a global world tour. So really excited to be here sharing these lessons learned with you, what we've been doing, how the book continues to sort of evolve, and people really all over the world now starting to have access to it, use it, and apply the lessons learned from it. So excited to dive in. And this chapter probably is one of the ones I think that we probably have most of the biggest response to. It's really about redesigning how you operate, not with the tools you use, but with the way you work. And this is probably one of the most important parts about adopting these tools. The biggest things leaders need to unlearn is actually not starting with the tools themselves. It's thinking about the personable traits that you have. AI doesn't change leadership, your operating system about how you work does. So, this is where we talk a little bit about making things more about you, understanding how you do your best work to leverage the tasks that are most important to you to create these tools to give you an unfair advantage. So I think we all know that AI adoption is everywhere. I think it's up 400% in the last year. The return on investment, though, however, is concentrated into a very small number of companies, really around 15%. And even them are seeing less than 5% of IDIBIA actually drive success. But the ones that are succeeding are doing something fundamentally different than most. They're not treating these AI tools as the transformation. They're treating people's changing their behavior. This is one of the biggest parts. Most companies see adopting AI as a tools rollout, but they get very little value from it. What happens is when people see it as a transformation, amazing things happen. And that's the challenge, right? Most organizations are failing at this because they're adding more tools, they're expecting increased output, hoping that there'll be more workflows that will be done. But if behavior doesn't change, performance doesn't change. You really have to reframe this. And the idea is if you don't think about a behavior transformation that you're going through rather than a tools transformation, your result is actual failure. So AI without behavior change is simply decoration. It's not going to do anything for you. So you have to start thinking that I'm not here to install AI. You have to think about installing a new operating system about how you work. Transformation starts with how you operate, about how you work. So this is way more personal ever before it becomes organizational. And for me, that was sort of my big aha. I was sitting there writing the Unlearn book many years ago, and I was struggling. I thought that that's what writers did. They had to sit there and type. Now, I'm dyslexic, as many people know, but one of the things that I was really struggling with was I thought that the way you created book was by sitting there and typing all the time. So it just wasn't the way that I naturally work. It wasn't the way that I got my best flow happening. So I really started to think and ask myself honest questions. Well, how do I do my best work? And became very obvious to me that when I'm ideation, it's much more about talking. Talking is a really important part of how I work. It's back and forth, it's conversations with people. And that's how I generate my best information. It's my natural trait about how I do my work. So once I understood that, it was kind of easy. I could reframe a little bit about actually instead of trying to copy this way that I've been told writers work, that they sit there and type, I'm actually going to talk. So I hired a journalist to interview me, and they would ask me questions about each chapter of the book, and I would bullet point them out, and I would share, just openly talk about the ideas that I had. And we had a small, at the time, transcriptor that would sit with us. So we would record the call, and then we'd upload the recording of the call into the transcription service. And then the journalist would take it and sort of copy edit it and send it back to me within minutes. So suddenly we got out of this mode of trying to create content to actually editing content and iterating it really fast. So it was just a game changer. I went from taking weeks to write chapters to literally taking 45 minutes. And this was sort of the huge aha for me. And it became the foundation for a lot of the models that I use to help people understand these tools. You see, the challenge is most people struggle with where to start with AI. They initially go straight to tools. They think they have to use a new tool. They've heard about ChatGPT or they've been told Claude is better. So they just jump straight to a tool. But a tool is sort of a codified, hardened way about a system of work, about a way of working. So if it doesn't suit your style of working, never mind if it doesn't suit the task that you're trying to do, it's not going to work well. So what you actually need to start with is yourself. You need to start with your natural traits. How do I do my best work? What are the things that I do that are unique to me that allow me to do the best performance of my work? So for me, that was talking. And once you understand your natural best ways of working, then it's about looking about the most important tasks that you do. What are the tasks that create unfair value and advantage in my day? What are the most important ones? So for me, for example, when I'm working with founders or executives, coaching is a great example. A coaching call is a really important task. And then what tools can I use to help make that better? So when I know my natural traits, the tasks that matter most, what are the right tools for that job? And so for me with the book, the task or my natural trait was talking, the task was content creation. So therefore, having a transcription service was a natural tool that was going to accelerate my speed. When I'm doing coaching calls with leaders, again, talking, the task is coaching people, but having tools like a meeting copilot allows us to go back over the content that we're generating after the fact. We can really focus on the meeting. So this is sort of really the most important part. Most leaders, unfortunately, start in the wrong order and they get the wrong outcome. They start with tools, try to apply them to the tasks that they do, and then leave their natural traits about how they work to the very end. So you've more tools, you've more noise, and you've more fragmentation. It doesn't work. The trick is you actually start with how you perform your best. You think about your natural traits. How do I actually think and work my best? Where does my judgment really matter most in the tasks that I'm involved in? And then what tools are going to amplify and accelerate? And once you get this right, it actually simplifies and accelerates everything. And this was sort of the huge breakthrough for me, right? Too many leaders are approaching this in the wrong order. And then they use the tools, they don't get the outcome that they want, the tasks they're trying to apply them to, and they sort of write it up and say, you know what, these tools don't really work very well for me. I don't think this is sort of the way that these tools should work, right? So this is a really important part. How when you think about identifying what really matters for you and how you can create the most value in the work that you do, right? And this is sort of really why I say to people is that we don't have a tool problem. You have a work design problem. Right now, most leaders are spending maybe 20 hours a week in meetings. They're recreating context every time they go back to a meeting. They're sitting there sort of asking, well, what did we talk about last week? What are we going to talk about next week? And you can see they have to reconstruct all of this sort of context of a meeting that they've been having. And they're calling it leadership. So you're not really, I would say, overloaded. You're misallocated. You're using the wrong methods for the outcome that you're aiming for. So this is a little quick reflection. I'd say to people: take a second. What percentage of your week are you actually using your judgment? What work are you still doing that maybe shouldn't exist? Where are you a bottleneck, maybe by habit or necessity? Right, ask yourself these honest questions. You think about the week that you've had or what's come past. Where have you been spending your time? Is it the most important places that you've spent your time? So this then, when you start to redesign the way you work, it becomes really important, right? Order is everything. This is your operating system, and it's a practical model. When you start with the tools, they come last, not first. So again, think about like what's the highest value thing that you're spending your time on, and what's the natural way that you do your best work. So for many people, it might be coding, it might be drawing pictures, it might be taking notes. Understanding about your natural ways that you do your best thinking allows you then to start build a system of work around what you do best. So for many people, leaders, you are in a lot of meetings, right? You think about that and your judgment matters. So your ability to have recall of information, understand context that you had, prepare for the meeting by having lots of access to transcripts maybe that you've been capturing. This allows you to prepare better, to show up more ready and in a calmer place. So for me, again, finding this question of asking yourself, how do I actually do my best work? Not how it looks, not how you were taught how to do things, not what others expect of you. Really asking yourself, how do I do my best work? What is my natural traits that help me? So for many people, again, writing for me was slow and it forced when I was trying to type things out. Even do emails now. I talk all my emails straight into tools that I can then understand that I have to write them. Right. So for me, natural trait talking, the task writing emails, and then using tools so it can capture my thoughts in real time and then synthesize them down in an LLM to make it more presentable. Right? This is more energizing for me. It unlocks performance and my natural self come across. And other things like even typing creates friction for someone like me because I can be faster by talking. Right. And this is, again, starting to really think about when you pry this leadership work to sort of up against what you're dealing with in the market. So for me, there are necessary time suck administrative tasks sometimes, typing up notes, writing follow-ups, reformatting updates and sending them out again. So for me, I can use that at high leverage now. I can prepare. Every meeting I'm in, I have a transcript with me. I have a meeting memory tool. I can prepare for all my one-on-ones by asking simple questions like saying, what were the last actions? What were the key talking points? What is the information we need to make a decision the next time we get together? That's high leverage tasks for me instead of actually rebuilding context all the time. And like I said, so much of our time is wasted in these meetings that are run poorly. 23 hours a week, and most people spend in meetings. 35% have no agendas, which is just unbelievable. Almost a quarter of them end with no clear outcomes. So most people are just fed up of how they actually run and operate. But once you start to understand that the way you're focused on is trying to drive this behavior of making decisions, you start to quantify now just like the wasted time. You start to think about, how do I do my best work? How do I prepare for high stakes meetings? Well, if you can, for me, I know I'm a talker. I have a meeting co-pilot. Every task I do of meeting with my team is captured and transcribed and turned into an asset. So before every meeting, I can go back to that asset and prepare. I can be ready. I can be able to understand the last conversation we had, the next decision we need to make, and find the information to support me. This idea of sort of using AI just to, email check documents or like these are sort of helpful, but the real leverage is when you use it for thinking, when you start to use it to prepare for all that data that I'm capturing and turning into assets over time from every session that I do with someone. I'm bringing to those meetings my natural traits. I'm able to talk. I'm able to go deeper with the person, really listen to them because I know I've got a transcription service supporting me. So then when I need to make these decisions at the end of my week, literally just have to go back over all the content I've created for the week as a data asset and start asking it questions. How could I have ran that meeting better? How could I have made a decision sooner? What information is helping me make those trade-offs? And this is a really powerful way to work. So one of the great case studies in the book is with Joe Narenya. He's the former COO for global markets of HSBC. And Joe did something really fascinating. What he did is whenever he had new problems to work on, he used to go and give them to the most junior hires, often people who were just coming in straight out of university. And he would ask them, how would you go about solving this problem? So it was a fascinating way for him to see new people adopt different ways of working. And he could see these graduates essentially using new tools, new ways of working, talking to machines instead of actually typing everything. So it creates this very unique sort of cultural asset when you have someone who's the most senior person in the company working with the most junior people to learn from them. Right, so this creates a faster learning organization. It drives new behaviors. So there's always a thing when people say, right, AI is sort of a priority for the company, but when you don't see leaders doing the experimentation, or they're not sharing in the open, or just talking about tools rather than talking about how they're changing the way they work. This is sort of the real unlearning that actually needs to happen, right? You must actually start thinking about changing the way you behave, changing the way you work. How do you do your work? And how do you prioritize? How do you measure where you're spending your time? Because the leaders who go tools first end up creating more noise, having more output, but there's no real transformation because they're just bolting a tool onto the way they work. The leaders who go traits first really think clearly about, how do I do my best work? What are the most important tasks? What's the information that I need to make these high stakes decisions? How do they capture all of this information that they're in? That begins to compound over time. It becomes an advantage. So when you're sitting here thinking, okay, how do I get started now with these tools? Jumping into the tool is the wrong place to start. Think about your natural traits, your highest leverage tasks, and then the tools that might help you, right? But don't try to change everything. Think big, start small, start personal. Maybe pick one workflow that is recurring to you. Maybe it's a point of friction, a challenge that you have at the moment. Apply the 3T model. Think about your tasks that are important, the traits, and most importantly, of your how you work. Remember that this doesn't scale through tools. It scales through you changing how you work, building a system of work to allow you change not only yourself, but ultimately your organization. These are some of the fundamental steps as you sort of move through this process to creating an artificial organization. As I said when we began, we started talking about the real shift for AI. It's not necessarily about productivity, it's about higher performance, greater executive presence, measuring that through decision velocity and decision advantage, making more decisions frequently with more confidence with the right information to hand. The 3T model then is helping you understand how you do your best work, understanding your traits, what tasks matter, and then the tools that work for you. Then once you start to understand that behaviors, that's where you start to build your judgment systems and your judgment infrastructure, which really moves away from this idea of AI theater and talking about how many tools or agents you've made this week, to talking about real business outcomes that you've affected. And the most important part, you've got to learn in the open. Learn and lead in public by sharing what you're doing, what's working, what's not. And as I said, we've continued to work with some of the world's best companies. I'm actually back in San Francisco here to launch the book tonight. Extremely excited about that. Companies based here, such as Wells Fargo, Slack, businesses that I've worked with for many years. I'm excited to share that ongoing. And this week as well, or next week, I'll also be back in American Airlines to help them celebrate their 100-year anniversary with Misty and the team, and see how they continuously innovate the way that they're working by using these methods, these tools and frameworks that I'm sharing with you over the course of these programs and the tools. Remember, the book is now available on Amazon. We're number one across, I think, 4 different categories now. It's been amazing to see the reaction to this, how it's inspiring people, and how they're putting the ideas to work. So please make sure, if you do grab the book, do write a review on Amazon. It has a huge effect on helping other people find the book. If you've read the book, do continue to share with me online, LinkedIn, and so forth, just letting me know how you've used it. Share a photo of you with the book. It's always fun to get them. I think I got my first photo of someone at the beach for spring break here in the US. So really enjoyed that. Again, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And I'm going to try and take a couple of the questions here for these questions, but a lot of people are just sort of resonating to say, yeah, this makes sense. Here's one here. For the future mode of operation, I'd reverse engineer to current mode of operation and then decide an evolution roadmap towards future mode. Yeah, so this idea, I think many people like to use this current state, future state sort of model about when they're talking about this transition. But again, what I've learned from helping people and help myself, most importantly, with these tools, is the place to start is not some system you're trying to design. Just in the very beginning, just start asking yourself, how do I do my best work? What are the natural ways? Am I a drawer? Am I a typer? Am I a thinker? Am I a talker? Becoming really aware about how you process and generate information is key. Because once you understand how you generate information, then you can understand the tasks where that information is imperative. For most leaders, that ends up being meetings, right? And meetings at the moment are still a status update. You need to turn them into a decision engine, right? Meetings, decision engine. And then the tools that will help you prepare for those decision engine moments. Some of it will be capturing information using tools like transcription. Some of it will be LLMs taking those transcriptions and putting them into tools so you can synthesize the information and ask tougher questions, challenge your thinking, prepare yourself for the next meeting. So once you find that great flow between understanding the way you do your best work, the moments that are the highest leverage, your tasks, and then tools that will help you prepare for that, that's how you sort of get into a cycle of your natural ways of working. So it's less so sitting down and trying to design this end state and then experiments to get towards it. Just start very simple. What's one meeting, one moment, one thing that is real high stakes for you at the moment? Understand your natural traits and behaviors, understand your high leverage moment in a task, and then think about one or two tools that could help you prepare for that better. Okay, so again, lots of nice comments, people enjoying the book, people all over the world dialing in. Again, we'll continue to do these sessions. Thank you very much for all your questions. It's been super fun doing these. Next week, we'll be talking, funnily enough, about turning everything into, or every interaction into an asset. And this is really starting to build, if you will, the beginnings of your decision and judgment infrastructure across your company. Because if you start to think about every interaction, every piece of information that you create becomes a data asset that you can leverage later. This is sort of the beginnings of starting to use these tools and your natural human abilities to the maximum. All right, so again, if you're in San Francisco, hopefully see you at the book launch tonight. If not, I am on a global tour. Next, I'll be in Austin, then Dallas, Washington, D.C., and New York, and then moving on to Europe at the beginning of May. Looking forward to meet you all. Again, keep sharing how you're using the book, how you're putting it to work, and maybe a couple of reviews on Amazon. Thanks very much again for joining us. I'll see you at the next session next week.